Blog Talk Radio.
To Death, powered by D.T.M Wicked Radio, and brought to you by FEAR Paranormal. Tonight, I have really cool guests on that I'm excited to talk to. They have, since today, I guess, joined ASAP Entertainment family. And there's this really cool book called The Horsefly Chronicles by Philip Siracusa and Carissa Fleck is the ghostwriter there. And I have both of them on tonight so we can speak about this amazing topic. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing great. How are you?
Awesome. Awesome. Phil, you there?
Yes, great. Thank you for having us on the show. Just so that you know, we're on speakerphone. And
okay.
We're actually in the room in the basement where we like to do the radio shows where it's the most quietest.
Awesome. Yeah, I was listening to one that you had done a little earlier on, and the subject matter is crazy because I know my audience is all about knowing what's on the other side, but you've actually kind of seen both sides. So without further ado, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about the Horsefly Chronicles and how this all came to be?
Sure. My name is Phil Siracusa. I'm the author of the Horsefly Chronicles, A True Life Demonic Haunting. I'd like to first start out that I do not disrespect anybody's beliefs or religion. This is my own personal experience of where I've been. Some of the information that I will give is hard to believe, understand, and maybe digest, but I can only tell you that this is the life that I live. And when people question, is heaven and hell real? Does heaven and hell actually exist? The answer is yes, it does. I know because I've been there. I did not die here in the physical world and cross over. Heaven is where my story actually starts and where I am today with this haunting. So what I like to do is I like to take you back from the beginning. And it'll be like 5 minutes of me just delivering the beginning of the story, and then we can take questions and go further. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Okay, great. Does heaven actually exist? It does. We were running through the fields. It's the most beautiful place that words here in the physical world cannot describe. Our senses, the feeling of love, peace, and tranquility, and the sights are amazing. We were running through the fields. She had long blonde hair and crystal blue eyes, very angelic. We laughed with love in our hearts and passed all of our friends. In heaven, the vibrations that you feel, you don't have to tell someone you love them. Just by the touch, you can feel all their love. We stopped abruptly in the fields in the last part of heaven. She looked at me deep in the eyes, and she says, "You have to go," as we were being circled by something dark. I says, "Go where?" She goes, "I will come back for you." In a flash, in a blink of an eye, I was pulled into the darkness of hell. How do I know that I just left heaven? There's no pain. There's absolutely no pain. And when I was pulled into hell, I took in hurt, pain, sorrow, and the feelings of utterly disgust and its total darkness and the smells of sulfur. I was walking down this long, long hallway and heard screams by the hundreds of thousands of people, screaming and crying, not seeing in front of me what I was about to encounter. Hell looks like the inside of a volcano. Its immensity is enormous, with over 100 different levels. Each level has cubbies. These cubbies are where the slaves are put, and that's what we are called to Satan. People ask, is Satan the demon, devil, the Antichrist? Does he actually exist? He does. And what do demons look like? Demons look like our fears. You see, Satan knows our fears. And in hell, that's how he represents them to us, to torture us. He's on the bottom floor of hell. We're there to do the work for Satan and his demons. There's no time in the spiritual world of heaven or hell. Time does not exist. The only thing that I had was faith. Faith that I would be pulled out of there. And I had restored faith when I started to see that some of these slaves that I got to know were no longer there. A crack of light came from miles and miles away from the top right of this look-alike volcano. A pinhole of light. This light came slower and closer to me, and slower and closer. It began to consume me. As it was slowly consuming me, I felt all that love and peace from heaven come right back again. And I started to leave that pain and hurt and emptiness behind. This light does exist. It's a vortex of energy that goes on to infinity. Not far behind me were these dark entities that also were pulled in from hell. I could not see them, but I could feel their presence. What is it like being pulled into this light? It's like being sucked into a vacuum cleaner hose where you feel every particle and atom and cell of your body being put together. And it comes with emotions and feelings of love and a new birth and a new life. On September 16th, 1967, I opened my eyes here in the physical world, and I was born. 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old. I had simple nightmares. 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, the nightmares grew worse. And as a child and adolescence, it's nothing more than a nightmare. That's all it's explained as. 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, nightmares became night tremors. I was pulled from hell because of faith, because that was the only thing I had. And Satan himself knew that. Unfortunately, these entities also came with me into the physical world. I didn't realize that up until teenage years. I went to a place in Manhattan called Magical Child where they sell crystals and potions and Ouija boards, and I wanted to know what was following me my entire life. And with a friend, I did the Ouija board and asked simple questions like, who are you? Do you know me? And the feelings start to get very, very bad in the room. And what happens is evil guides you to darkness where you don't see the light. And the Ouija board is nothing more than a tool, like a tool in the shed. But unfortunately, it's like when we pray, very similar, a Ouija board, the dark side is also listening and answering us back. And they draw you in like a negative magnet, pulling you in to their world. And what they want from a soul is communication, but also to be attached to that soul and bring that person down a dark road. I've lived my entire life with visitations. And I'm a person who questions everything. I'm from New York. I'm Italian. I really don't believe half of what I see unless I see it myself. But I will tell you that what I've encountered and see can't be explained. I brought other people to be involved with me to give me explanations, but back in the 80s, you would look like as if you were crazy talking about ghosts or paranormal. No one really was that hardcore into it as far as believing it. As the years progressed, I've had encounters. At 14 years old, just to backtrack a little bit, I was frozen in the middle of the street on a summer day when I was playing with all my friends outside. Something stopped me, and it talked to me through mental telepathy. And it said this. It said, "Are you having a good time in your life?" And then through my mind, because I could not move, I said yes. This being had a young voice, and he said, "Okay, that's great, because when your life journey is over, this is where you will wind up again." And then I was released. I never understood that as a teenager, what was happening. In 1995, my parents have a house upstate New York, and I was with an ex-girlfriend, and it was dark at night, and something came running down the road with these big, big eyes. In fear, we ran into the house, not knowing what it was. But it was like nothing I've ever seen. It was no animal or bear because the eyes were huge. And it couldn't be more than 4 feet tall. We dismissed it as the unknown, and we had no explanation behind it. Years went on, and as the years went on, these dark entities grew with me, stronger. As we get taller and older and more wise, so do dark entities. Because when they're attached to you, they don't want to let go. Because they want to live the life that you're living. I, for one, didn't believe in ghosts or demons up until 2000, when, again, the Ouija board was pulled out, and I took out the Book of Darkness that I also had purchased. And it's not the real name, but it's the name I'm going to use on the radio. I'll call it the Book of Darkness. You know, testing the laws of the unknown to see if these paranormal things actually work and these entities can talk to you. When I opened that book and I read passageways, I opened up that portal that was a crack open all the way. And now what happened is that every dark entity that could possibly come into my life has come into my life without realizing what I was doing because the veil was over my eyes. Fast forwarding up until 2007, me and my wife and my kids, I bought a home in Easton, Pennsylvania, my first home. July 2007, we were in bed. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning when these beings came through the window through some kind of light. My mind, the left side of my brain, was frozen. And I couldn't move, and my wife jumped up, ready to start screaming. They lifted my body and turned me around to the other side of the bed. I'm in the opposite direction of my wife. They put me face down through levitation, and they're doing something to me. The only glimpse that I had from these things was that they had long fingers that were silky. They had big heads, and they were discolored, and they were very, very skinny. I woke up the next day asking my wife what happened, but she had no memory. The weekend had come by, which was a couple days later, and a neighbor came over to me and says, "Phil, did you hear about the UFO sighting?" And I says, "No, I didn't," because I wasn't sure if it was a nightmare of what I was dealing with. Sure enough, if anyone does research on July 2007, there were claims